Hi, it's Paul from Model Builder International. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, that link's down there. Don't forget to have a rummage around the new layout of the sites with all the different sites in one place basically. Use the menu at the top, use the link underneath this video to get to the websites and then have a rummage around. Anyway, today we're going to have a look at a new kit from Mirage-Hobby. This is a 1/350th HMS Spiraea, which is a flower class corvette. The Flower class corvette was a British class of 267 corvettes used during World War II. They were used as anti-submarine convoy escorts during the Battle of the Atlantic. The majority served during World War II with the Royal Navy and Canadian Navy. Several ships built in Canada were transferred from the Royal Navy to the United States Navy under the Lend-Lease program and also to the US Coast Guard. They also served with the Free French Navy, the Netherlands Navy, Norwegian Navy, Indian, Hellenic, Royal New Zealand, Yugoslav, and immediately after the Royal South African Navy. After World War II, many surplus flower class vessels saw worldwide use in other navies as well as civilian use. HMCS Sackville is the only member of the class to be preserved as a museum ship in Canada. The months leading up to World War II saw the Royal Navy return to the concept of small escort warship being used to protect convoys. The flower class were based on the design of Southern Pride, a whaler, and were labelled corvettes. They were pretty bad sea ships as a result of being based on a whaler. They were very wet all the time. There's two distinct groups of vessels in this class: the original flower class of 225 vessels ordered in 1939 and 40, and the modified flower class, which followed with a further 69 vessels from 1940 onward. The modified flowers were slightly larger, somewhat better armed. They had the forecastle extended aft past the bridge to the aft end of the funnel. That gave the crew more space where they could gather out of the weather. Previously the crew was in the shorter forecastle. All the galley arrangements were at the aft end of the ship, so no matter what you were doing, you're probably going to get drenched before breakfast and before you started your shift. The added weight improved the ship's stability a little bit, but they were never great ships. They rolled easily, and the length of them was slightly shorter than the average pitch of a North Atlantic wave, so they were never good. A lot of these modifications were retroactively applied to a number of the original flower class vessels during the mid-war and later years, but not all. So you can see ships with a variety of different fittings, armaments, all sorts of things. Going back to the original flowers, had a mast located immediately forward of the ship, which was not normal practice at the time. Modified flowers saw the mast return to the normal position immediately after the bridge. However, some ships had this retroactively fitted and some didn't. Okay, so let's have a look inside the box. Firstly, I'll tell you, I'm just redoing this part of the video because it wasn't in focus properly. So this is sort of a version 2 of this whole video. So obviously you'll see things inside have been opened. HMS Spiraea, flower class corvette, Mirage-Hobby, 1/350th scale. On the box sides, just mentions decal, bit of background, bit of painting guide. If I open it up, so there's the decal sheet, and you've also got some photo etch. Looks to be mostly railings and a ladder there as well. Instructions, pretty straightforward. There's the painting guide. Her is either 1941, 42 or 42, 43 paint schemes. Doesn't give you a reference. Basically the MS stuff and the PB, that's the Royal Navy reference for the colours. And on the back, a bit of background information, a couple of other kits. Both flower class corvettes, Angusa and Zinnia. Instructions, one sheet of paper, Starting with step 1 and the hull, and going forward, depth charges split in half, so there might be a seam down the middle there that's going to be a nightmare to get rid of, so maybe aftermarket for those. Other than that, not too bad. Shows you in sections, it's easy enough, 2-part funnel. It's all not too bad. Diagram's a bit small perhaps, could be bigger. And then going forward, put it on the stand at the end, and a quick guide to the rigging. Again, would be nice if it was a fair bit bigger. Then looking at the plastic, we've got 1, 2, 3 sprues. So I'll start with the biggest one. You can see, compared to my hand, just really how big it is. So about 6 inches. Plating detail on the side, recessed portholes. Just putting that on the deck, so we've got planking detail and some small ways detail. That's the stand. And that lifeboat, not too bad detail actually, pretty good. I've got sides of superstructures, there's the 2-part funnel. A little bit of flash on there, but really quite flimsy, so easy to get off. And that's not too bad. And then a couple of parts of top of the superstructure, again planking detail. Looks quite nice actually. And yeah, more superstructure there. It's all in all pretty neat. So let's go have a look at some of the steps on the instructions and a close-up look at some of these parts. Don't forget there's photos of these, or close-up photos of everything you see in the video and more on the website, and the link to that is underneath this video. So in plastic/resin, I can only see 2 companies who've made 1/350th scale flower class ships, Mirage-Hobby and Iron Shipwrights. The 3 kits by Iron Shipwrights are in resin, they're from the 2000s, although they do cover both the long and short forecastle versions. Mirage-Hobby does 4 ships, all long forecastle versions, and they date from 2013-14. Okay, so a quick overview. Inside the box there's 3 sprues and 190 parts. A PE sheet with 9 parts, which is mostly railings. Small decal sheet and the instructions, where the build instructions are in sort of grayscale CAD drawings, and there's a colour painting guide. The instructions could do with being a bit bigger. Maybe you might need magnifiers, or just take a photograph or copy them and print them out bigger. And the sprues themselves look pretty good. All I'll say is some of the smaller parts, the sprue attachment points seem to be pretty big, so you might actually cut the sprue itself to get the parts out rather than trying to remove the delicate parts. Okay, we'll start off going through the build instructions. There's 26 steps, but I'm just going to go through a page at a time, so that's step 1 to 8 now. To start with, you put the hull together, 2 hull halves, trap the rudder, put in some of the deck. There's some nice plate detail on the side of the hull, so that'll look good. And then add the main deck and other deck parts, and then you start at the aft end of the ship with the depth charge rails, and slowly work your way forward, adding some small parts. Over the page, we're starting to work amidships, add lots more small parts. Some of the P railings go on. Make the ship's funnel out of 3 parts, put that on, start building some superstructure amidships, and add ship's boat and the davit. On to the 3rd step of the build, adding another ship's boat, building the bridge, slowly moving forward, adding more detail, add the mast in front of the bridge, more photo etch, and adding the stand for the main gun on the forecastle. And on the last page, there's not actually very much. Adding small parts at the front of the ship's railing at the very front. Personally, I'd probably add the railings right at the very end, but obviously it's personal choice. We all build these things differently. And the very last step is actually a bit of a non-step. It's just showing the ship in various views, and they do supply a pedestal to stand the ship on. Okay, paints and decals. You get 2 decal schemes are given in full colour, port and starboard views of her as she was in 41-42 and also in 42-43. She had a refit in 1942, and that's when the scheme changed. You're given the Admiralty names of the 3 colours involved both sides. You'll also have to do a bit of research because the decks were green apart from some wooden deck boards, but mostly it was metal green. You'll have to do a bit of research just to see exactly what that green was. Other than that, the colours are good and it should present no problem. You also get a small decals sheet with all the necessaries. Note that on the 2 schemes, the actual ship number K08 is in 2 slightly different places on the port and starboard side. Should say before refit and after refit. Other than that, it looks okay, just with a bit of your own research. Okay, so an overall conclusion. You can get this kit direct from Mirage-Hobby. The link is underneath the video, and the first thing I notice is it's really competitively priced, less than $20 for this. You get 160 parts, the essentials of the photo etch, the railings, so it'll look pretty neat. You can add rigging if you wish. All in all, it's should build into quite a nice little kit, and really it's a pretty good first introduction to 350th shipbuilding. All the essentials are there at a reasonable price, minimum of photo etch, so it's pretty neat, and it's a class that's underrepresented in plastic for sure, so it should do quite well. And many thanks to Mirage-Hobby for sending it along for us to have a look at.